The arena of beasts. The crowd screamed from every side. Thousands of aliens filled the massive stone seats of the arena of Quathar, their strange faces full of excitement and bloodlust. The walls were high, the sky above was red, and two suns burned through the dusty clouds. In the center of the arena stood a single human, his hands behind his back, calm, steady. Lieutenant Jace Monroe. He wore torn clothes from the prison ship and had dirt on his face. But he stood tall, like he didn't care who was watching. Like he didn't fear death, he didn't. On the royal balcony high above sat Princess Yarla of Quathar. Her golden crown glowed. Her silver skin sparkled under the twin suns. Her long purple robe waved in the wind. She leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "This is the one?" she asked. Her servant bowed. "Yes, Your Grace. The human who killed 3 of your guards, with bare hands." Yarla stood and raised her voice, her words booming through the arena. "Human, you stand in my court, in my arena, surrounded by thousands. You know who I am? Why do you not tremble?" Jace looked up slowly. He didn't smile. He didn't kneel. He just replied in a calm voice. "Because fear only works on people who believe you're stronger." The crowd gasped. Even Yarla's guards stiffened. Yarla's lips curled into a grin. "Oh, I see. You think this is a game. Very well." She clapped her hands twice. From the dark gate behind Jace, the ground began to shake. Chains rattled. A deep growl echoed from the tunnel. Then it appeared. A huge 6-legged alien beast covered in thick black scales. Its eyes glowed red, and its jaws dripped with green venom. Long spines stuck out from its back, and it let out a roar that made the arena tremble. The creature was called Grather. No prisoner had ever survived facing it. Jace didn't move. Yarla pointed down with one long silver finger. "One word from me," she said, "and my pet will devour you." The crowd screamed again. They wanted blood. The beast stepped closer to Jace. It sniffed the air, growled, lowered its head, ready to strike. Yarla raised her hand, but Jace didn't flinch. He slowly turned his head and locked eyes with the monster. Then he did something strange. He whispered. No one could hear what he said, but the beast heard. It froze. Its red eyes blinked. Then it stepped back. The crowd fell silent. Even Yarla froze. "What?" she said. "Why didn't it attack?" Jace took one slow step toward the beast, then another. The creature didn't roar. It lowered its head to the ground, and then, in front of everyone, it bowed. Gasps filled the arena. Whispers ran through the crowd like fire. Yarla stood straight, her voice sharp. "Grather, I gave you the command, kill him." The beast didn't move. It stayed bowed. And then, it slowly turned around and walked back to the gate. Jace stood, alone in the center, still calm, still fearless. Yarla's hands were shaking. "This is impossible," she said. "No human can control a Quathari beast. That creature was raised in fire pits. It fears no one." Jace looked up at her and finally gave a small smile. Maybe it met someone who doesn't fear it. The royal guards ran to her, whispering questions, but Yarla didn't answer. Her eyes stayed on the human. There was something different about him. Something wrong. Or maybe something powerful. In the shadowed corners of the arena, a group of alien commanders watched closely. One of them spoke in a low voice. "That human is dangerous," another replied. "He must be studied. Watched. No normal human does this." Jace was led away in chains. But this time, the guards walked slower. They didn't laugh. They didn't insult him. And the beast? It followed quietly behind, like a loyal shadow. Up in her tower, Yarla stared out the window. Her fingers gripped the stone rail tightly. She whispered to herself, "What are you, human? And what did you say to my pet?" The beast hesitates. The prison was deep below the Colosseum, cold and dark. Stone walls dripped water. Echoes of past screams haunted every hallway. Guards rarely came down here unless they had to, but tonight something was different. Lieutenant Jace Monroe sat calmly on the floor of his cell. His arms were chained to the wall, but he didn't struggle. His eyes were focused on the large shape, just outside the bars. Grathier, the six-legged beast, lay curled near the gate. It had not returned to its pit. It had followed him, and now it refused to leave. Guards whispered behind the corner. Why is it still here? It should have gone back hours ago. Did the human control it somehow? They were scared, not of the beast, but of what it meant. Jace said nothing. He simply stared at the beast. And the beast stared back. There was no growl, no roar, just silence. Then Grathier slowly moved closer to the bars. It lay down again, right in front of the cell door, resting its massive head on the cold floor, watching Jace, like a guard dog, or a friend. Up in her chamber, Princess Yarla was pacing. Her steps were sharp, her hands shaking. The beast is disobedient, she hissed. It bows to him. Her servant stayed quiet. She turned sharply. I want that human questioned. I want every file on Earth soldiers. Something's wrong. The servant hesitated. There is something, Your Grace. Yarla narrowed her eyes. Well, speak. The servant showed her a data tablet. Humans, especially those trained on Terra 9, have strange mental codes. Silent commands, unreadable bonding waves. Some say they could calm war beasts without speaking. Yarla's face grew cold. You mean, they trained to control monsters? No. Not control, he replied. Connect. Back in the cell, Jace heard heavy boots approaching. 2 armored guards stopped in front of his gate. One stepped forward. You're being moved. The princess wants answers. The other guard looked nervously at Grathier. What about the beast? Jace smiled slightly. You'll have to tell it to move. The guard swallowed. Yeah, I'll pass. With careful steps, they opened the gate. Grathier growled low, standing up and towering over them. Easy. Easy, one muttered. Jace raised a hand. The beast looked at him and stepped aside, obeying him, not the guards. They led Jace through the underground halls. Grathier followed behind, quiet, heavy, massive. When they reached the chamber, Princess Yarla was already waiting. The room was wide, glowing with golden firelight and floating crystals. Jace was chained to a floating metal chair, not harshly, but carefully. Yarla walked around him slowly. You spoke to my pet. It bowed. It followed you. Why? Jace didn't answer. Yarla slammed her hand on the table. Answer me. He finally spoke, voice calm. Because fear isn't the only bond. Some creatures feel something deeper. She narrowed her eyes. Are you saying it likes you? No, Jace said. I'm saying it understands me. Suddenly, Grathier growled at the guard standing too close. One backed away, tripping over his own foot. Yarla looked back at the beast, then at Jace. Her voice was sharp. Fine, you and the creature will be tested. A bond? Let's see how deep it really goes, she pointed to the guard. Tomorrow, the trial pit. You both enter. One walks out. Jace didn't blink, and neither did the beast. Outside the room, servants whispered to each other. This is madness. If the bond is real, he might survive. No, said one softly. If the bond is real, the Empire might be in danger. That night, Jace was returned to his cell. Grathier followed without chains, without orders. It lay down beside him again, on the other side of the bars. Jace leaned back against the wall, staring at the ceiling. He whispered, more to himself than the beast. They don't understand you, do they? The beast gave a quiet rumble. Jace closed his eyes. Tomorrow, we show them. Whispers of Earth training far above the arena, in the high tower archives of House Quather. The crystal lights flickered, Inside a cold circular chamber, several alien scientists stood around a glowing data map of Earth. Lines and records danced through the air, military symbols, redacted files, and coded training logs from long-forgotten wars. One scientist, old and hunched, tapped a line marked Project Silex. "This isn't ordinary human behavior," she said. Another leaned closer. "Grather obeys no one, yet it follows. This Earthborn like a cub." The first one nodded slowly. "I've seen this before. Once, decades ago, on the Rim Worlds." The room fell silent. They all remembered the report. A colony war. One human, with 3 alien beasts at his side. Not controlled, not forced, connected. And now, it was happening again. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Colosseum, Jace Monroe sat silently on the floor of his dark cell. His wrists were bruised from chains, but his posture remained straight. Outside the cell bars, Grather, the massive 6-legged beast, rested quietly with one eye open, always watching him. Jace didn't talk to the beast. He didn't feed it. He didn't give it commands, he simply breathed with it. They matched rhythm, still, calm, connected. In the shadows above, hidden behind energy glass, Princess Yarla watched through a surveillance screen. Her eyes were wide. Her pride had turned into obsession. "Why won't the beast return to its den?" she demanded. The guard bowed. "It refuses to move without the human." Yarla clenched her jaw. "This is Earth trickery. Some kind of scent-based control." She turned to her tactician. "I want Earth's military history dissected. Every war, every special unit. Find me a reason." The next morning, her orders were delivered to the archives. A full team of Quathari analysts worked nonstop. And then, they found it. A file buried in layers of security. Old Earth Black Ops program. Silex protocol. Symbiotic integration and link experiment. Objective: create deep neural bonds between humans and non-Earth biological predators using scent markers, energy pulses, and emotional syncing. Subjects: elite Earth soldiers only. Special clearance. Used in deep war zones. Status: terminated. Results unknown. The lead analyst's hands shook. He turned to the others. This wasn't training. It was evolution. Back in the prison block, Jace was taken from his cell. Chains again. 2 guards. But this time, Grather followed on, its own. No cage, no leash, and no resistance. They walked through the lower levels of the palace. Servants stopped and stared. Whispers spread like wildfire. "The beast is walking beside him." Did he cast a spell? No, he's Earthborn. They say Earth soldiers could link with monsters. He might not be a prisoner, he might be something worse. Yarla waited in a private viewing chamber, standing behind a one-way shield of glass. She watched Jace and Grather enter the trial pit gates. Her fingers tapped slowly on the edge of her throne. She was no longer angry. She was afraid. Outside, in the city streets of Quathar, rumors had already begun. Children played with sand creatures, pretending to be the calm human. Merchants sold carvings of a man walking beside a beast. Even some guards whispered behind closed doors, "Maybe we've misunderstood them. Maybe humans are more than we believed." Back in the trial pit tunnels, Jace knelt beside Grather. The beast lowered its head and let out a soft sound, not a growl, but something close to a sigh. Jace rested one hand on the thick armored skull. He whispered, "I'm not here to tame you. I just see you." The beast closed its glowing eyes for a second, then opened them, sharper than before. They were ready. In the shadows above, Yarla spoke to herself. "If he wins this pit, I won't just lose my pride. I'll lose control of the people." She turned to her guards. "If either of them walks out alive, destroy the arena." But the universe had already changed, and it all started with whispers of Earth soldiers who didn't conquer beasts with chains but earned their loyalty with something deeper. Challenge of the pit. The crowd returned to the arena of Quathar, louder than ever. Flags waved, drums pounded, horns screamed. Everyone was waiting to see the trial of the beast. But this time it wasn't a normal match. This time it was legend in the making. Lieutenant Jace Monroe stood tall at the center of the sand pit. The air was dry, the sun above sharp and unforgiving. Beside him stood Grathur, the six-legged monster feared across the stars. But it no longer looked like a monster. It looked like a warrior, and it was standing next to its partner. On the royal balcony, Princess Yarla rose from her seat. She raised her silver hand and shouted across the arena, "Today the bond between human and beast will be tested. Only one may leave this pit alive." The crowd roared. Some cheered for the princess. Others for the human, and that scared her more than she'd admit. The gates opened. But instead of one challenger, 4 enemies entered, not beasts, not prisoners, but dark-armored assassins, elite Quathari enforcers with twin plasma blades and no names. Jace's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a test. It was an execution. He looked at Grathur. The beast growled low. Together, they turned to face the first assassin charging straight toward them. Jace rolled left, dodging a burning blade. He fired a small plasma shot into the attacker's shoulder and dove back. Another enemy leapt toward Grathur, only to be crushed in midair by the beast's massive tail. Crack. Bones broke. Dust rose. The crowd gasped. But it wasn't over. 2 more assassins jumped in from behind. One slashed at Grathur's leg. Blood sprayed. The other struck at Jace's back. The human stumbled, barely dodging the fatal strike. Yarla leaned forward in her seat. Her smile returned. "Bleed for me," she whispered. Jace reached for a broken spear on the ground. He threw it fast and hard. Thud, direct hit to the chest. 1 assassin fell, but the last one, the fastest, landed on Grathur's back and stabbed deep into the thick hide. The beast roared in pain. The arena shook. Jace ran forward and jumped on the assassin's back, grabbing the attacker's arm and twisting until he heard the crack of metal armor bending. He pulled the blade out of Grathur's back and threw it aside. The beast collapsed to one knee. Blood dripped into the sand. The assassin raised a hidden blaster to finish it, but Jace was faster. He tackled the attacker, grabbed the weapon, and fired. The assassin dropped instantly. Silence filled the arena. The dust settled. Only Jace and the wounded Grathur remained standing. The crowd didn't cheer. They stared, stunned, frozen. Princess Yarla's face was pale. Her trap had failed. Worse, it made them stronger. She whispered to her general, "Prepare the bomb. End them now." But down in the pit, something incredible happened. Jace walked over to Grathur and knelt beside the beast, placing a hand on its bleeding side. "You okay, big guy?" he asked softly. Grathur let out a soft grunt. Then, slowly, painfully, it rose. It stood tall. The wound glowed faintly. The pain was real, but its eyes were clear, focused, alive. The crowd began to rise to their feet, not with fear, but with respect. Some even clapped. Others raised their hands in silence. A bond like this, between a human and a Quathari beast, it had never been seen before. High above, Yarla saw her people's faces, not hate, not laughter, but awe, and she hated it. "This ends now," she hissed. "They walk out of that pit, I lose everything." Below, the ground beneath Jace shifted. He looked down. Tiny lights blinked in the sand. Bomb triggers. His eyes darted to the arena walls. Too far. No escape. Then Grathur did something strange. It leaned forward and nudged Jace toward the center pillar of the pit. The beast knew, and it had made a choice. Jace shook his head. "No, we walk out together." But the beast growled firmly and looked into his eyes. Then it moved, fast, throwing its massive body across the pit, over the bombs, and just as the bombs exploded, it shielded Jace. Flames burst, dust shot into the sky, screams echoed. The arena shook again. But when the dust settled, Jace was alive. And Grathur, burned, bruised, stood protectively in front of him, still breathing, still standing, And now, no one questioned the bond. Not even Yarla. Because in that moment, the beast didn't obey the human, it protected its brother. The truth behind the bond. The medical wing of House Quathar's fortress was built for royalty, not prisoners. Yet tonight, a human lay on its main table, bloodied, bruised, but very much alive. Lieutenant Jace Monroe had burns on his arms, cuts, across his ribs, and his vision blurred from the blast. But he wasn't alone. Beside his table, refusing to rest, sat Grathuer, wounded but alert. It had not left Jace's side since the trial pit. Even when guards pointed guns, it stood between them and the human. Even now its body blocked the door. Up in the palace tower, the High Lords of Quathar argued in panic. This isn't just strange, it's impossible. No human should bond with a beast of fire. This threatens everything. Princess Yarla stayed quiet. She stared at the screen showing Jace and Grathuer together in silence. Something ancient stirred in her memory, a story told to her as a child, of a race from Earth who didn't command with fear but led with trust. In the lower vaults, a team of alien historians searched Earth's ancient war records, and finally, they found it. Codename, Silex. Location, Terra 9. Deep core. Status, terminated. Untraceable. Details, top secret program. Earth soldiers trained to bond with alien apex predators through scent, heartbeat rhythm, brainwave syncing, and emotional alignment. Used only in wars where diplomacy failed. Only 6 humans ever passed. One name stood out in the declassified file, Jace Monroe. Back in the recovery room, Jace opened his eyes. Grathuer let out a low, gentle rumble. The human reached up weakly and placed a hand on the beast's head. "You're still here, huh?" he whispered. The beast pressed its forehead against Jace's palm. Princess Yarla entered the room alone. No guards, no weapons, just a data tablet in her hand. "You lied to us," she said softly. Jace didn't move. "I never spoke." She stepped closer. "You are part of Earth's forbidden program, Silex," he exhaled. "Not many remember that name." "I do now," Yarla said. She showed him the file. "Why come here? Why enter my arena?" Jace looked into her eyes. "I didn't plan this. I was chasing a war criminal. Your guards mistook me for a smuggler. I played along." "And now?" she asked. Jace smiled faintly. "Now the beast and I have started something you can't stop." Grathuer growled softly as if to agree. Yarla walked slowly to the beast. It didn't growl. It didn't strike. It simply watched her. She raised a trembling hand. "May I?" Jace nodded. She touched Grathuer's head gently. Its skin was rough, warm, alive. Tears filled her eyes. "I raised this creature from an egg, but it never looked at me the way it looks at you." Jace replied, "That's because I don't own it. I respect it." Outside the medical wing, news spread fast. Servants, guards, even rival nobles began whispering. The Earthman formed a soul bond. He didn't tame the beast, he earned it. Maybe the humans are not savages. Maybe they're more evolved than us. Yarla stood still, watching the human and beast. She whispered, "What do we do now?" Jace replied, "You don't kill the future. You listen to it." She turned to leave. But just before walking out, she said quietly, "The arena was just the beginning. The other houses won't accept this. They'll come for both of you." Jace looked at Grathuer, then smiled. "Let them." And deep in the shadows of Quathar's moons, secret eyes were already watching. Fearful eyes. Because, for the first time in 1,000 years, a human had walked among monsters and became one of them. The princess's humiliation. Princess Yarla sat frozen in her throne, her hands tight around the cold armrests. Across the palace, the people of Quathar had begun to chant not her name, not her titles, but the name of a human. Jace, Jace, Jace. It echoed through the spires like thunder. News had spread quickly. The trial pit, the explosions, the assassination attempt, the beast that chose to protect the human, and most of all, the truth. He was not just a prisoner, he was one of Earth's forgotten warriors, a relic of ancient training once thought mythical, and now even her own people were whispering. He stood unarmed in front of death. Grathur protected him like a brother. He's not just human, he's something more. In the palace halls, Counselor Zane, one of Yarla's advisors, approached quietly. "Your Grace," he said softly. "The arena is full. The people demand a ceremony." Yarla narrowed her eyes. "For what?" Zane hesitated. "To honor the human." She stood up sharply. "Honor a prisoner? A thief? An outsider?" Zane looked down. "Even the nobles are speaking of him now. Some say he carries the spirit of the Watchers." Yarla's voice turned sharp. "He is dangerous." "Yes," Zane said quietly, "but he is also respected." Later that day, the grand arena doors opened again, not for battle, but for judgment. Jace entered first, dressed not in armor but in simple black earth robes. His arms were free, his wounds still healing. Behind him walked Grathur, each step thunderous but peaceful. Together they moved to the center, not as slave and beast but as equals. Thousands filled the stands. This time, they didn't shout for blood. They stood in silence, watching, listening, waiting. Princess Yarla stood above, dressed in ceremonial silver robes. She looked down, forced to smile. This arena once judged warriors by fear and fire. But today, we witness something different. She turned her eyes to Jace. "You have challenged our traditions, our pride, our very way of thinking." Jace remained calm. "And yet, my beast did not bite," he replied. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Yarla continued. "Some believe your bond is unnatural, that it is a threat to Quathari law. And some believe it's a chance to evolve," Jace said plainly. She glared. But before she could speak again, Grathur stepped forward, and to everyone's shock, it bowed. Not to Yarla, but to the people. The arena erupted. Cheers, applause, cries of joy. Children waved painted flags, old soldiers wept. In that single moment, the crowd didn't see a monster. They saw hope, and beside it, the calm human who had never trembled. Yarla turned away from the edge of the balcony. Behind her, Counselor Zane approached again. "You've lost the people, Princess." She shook her head. "I still have the throne." "For now," he said carefully. "But the throne means nothing when the heart of the Empire beats for someone else." That night, Jace returned to his new chamber. No longer a cell, no chains, just soft light, food, and silence. Grathur curled in the corner, resting for the first time in days. Jace sat by the window. Outside, he could hear the people in the city chanting softly. The bond is real. He walks with the beast. He did not kneel. In a small moment of peace, Jace whispered, "Grathur, I didn't plan for this." The beast opened one glowing eye, huffed quietly, then closed it again. But deep in the palace, shadows gathered. Not everyone wanted peace. Some wanted power. And one name was now at the top of the target list, Jace Monroe. The human. She couldn't break. Night fell over the shining towers of Quathar. But peace did not come. Inside the royal palace, Princess Yarla stood alone in her war chamber. The glow from the monitors lit her face, showing news feeds from every system, every noble house. All of them were talking about Jace Monroe, the human who did not bow, the beast that chose him, the trial pit survivor. She clenched her fists. "I gave him fear," she whispered. "I gave him death, but he gave them hope." She turned to a tall, armored figure in the shadows. "Prepare the throne room." "What for?" the figure asked. Yarla's voice was cold. "For his final lesson." The next morning, Jace awoke in silence. No cheers, no messengers, too quiet. He rose and looked around. Graythuer stood near the door, stiff, alert, growling softly. Something was wrong. Before Jace could move, palace guards entered. But they didn't raise weapons. They bowed and spoke. "Princess, Yarla has summoned you for a private audience." Jace followed them through silent halls. Even servants had stopped to watch. Eyes followed him, some fearful, some curious. Many filled with respect. He entered the grand throne chamber. It was empty except for Princess Yarla standing in the center. No throne. No guards, just her. He stepped forward slowly. Grather stayed just behind him. Yarla didn't smile. She looked tired, worn, but still proud. "You changed my city," she said. Jace said nothing. "You changed my beast, my people. You made them question me." Still he remained quiet. She stepped closer. "But you couldn't change me." Suddenly, hidden turrets on the walls activated, glowing with heat. Jace didn't move. Grather stepped forward, growling. Yarla raised her hand. "Stop," she said. "If I die today, this empire will collapse, you know that." Jace replied calmly. "Then why summon me?" "To understand," she said. "Why didn't you ever kneel?" Jace looked her in the eyes. "I wasn't trained to break. I was trained to protect, and when you protect something, you don't bow. You stand." Yarla's lips trembled. She turned away and deactivated the turrets. The doors opened again, and the entire High Council of Quathar entered. They had been watching. Every word, every move. Yarla stood tall. "This human came here by mistake. I treated him like a tool, like a threat. And yet he stood taller than any of us." She looked at Grather. "Even my beast followed him." She stepped back and bowed to Jace. Gasps filled the chamber. The council watched in silence. And then, one by one, they bowed too, not to a king, not to a conqueror, but to the human who never trembled. Jace bowed slightly back, not in submission, but in respect. Behind him, Grathuer let out a long breath and sat down peacefully. Later, in the city square, statues were not raised, no parades, but stories spread, stories of the man who stood calm in front of monsters, and of the beast who chose him freely. In the outer colonies, children pretended to be Jace the Calm beside cardboard beasts. On Quathar, a new law passed. No creature, human or not, shall be ruled by fear. In the final days before he left, Yarla met Jace one last time at the palace garden. "Where? Will you go now?" she asked. Jace smiled. "Somewhere quieter. Will you come back?" He looked at her. "If needed." She nodded, then reached out her hand, not in command, but in friendship. He shook it. No words needed. Grather walked beside Jace as they stepped into the transport ship. The gates opened, and the city watched them. Go, they never saw him again. But the legend remained, the human she couldn't break and the beast who chose honor over fear.